Empire.
Hello and welcome to my podcast. Today, I'm joined by former Washington tight end and broadcaster Chris Cooley. It's been a while since you've heard from him, at least on this podcast. He's always great, so I wanted to ask about a variety of topics, what he's up to these days, new name, quarterbacks, Sean McVay, and more. You'll love hearing from him. And don't forget you can read my work on ESPN.com. I have plenty of stories up now about the name change, taking a deep dive inside the rebrand, how they reached this point. I think they knew people would be upset about the name no matter what. There are stories too about the roundtable hearing in Congress with former employees of the team. Also, don't forget to go over to Empire Media YouTube, where you can see the interviews, or most of them, and subscribe there. Okay, it's another good way to get the podcast, and you can sometimes see who's on there, and kind of cool. So there you go. Head over there, subscribe, Empire Media YouTube. As a reporter, there's not a whole lot I can say about those hearings because you have to kind of play it straight. I can analyze it, but I think we all know it continues to be a bad look for owner Dan Snyder. I also think it takes a lot of guts for people to come forward in a setting like that. They want to be heard, and they are. I don't know what they'll come of it, but they're being heard. It was not a good organization for a long time as far as the business culture, et cetera. I do believe it's in a better spot now, as everyone who was named in the reports or caused issues are no longer here, except, of course, for Snyder. The NFL, and that's a big one, don't get me wrong, but the NFL will at least investigate Tiffany Johnson's allegations about him trying to push her into his limo. He denied the allegation. I was also told she declined to speak to Beth Wilkinson for the report for whatever reason. So the NFL didn't know about what she had said. That one bears watching to see where it goes. And I don't know what the ultimate decision will be. That's above my level right now. I haven't been able to look into too much of it. It's happened so recent. Could the NFL levy more punishment off this? I don't know. The other stories that you heard in those roundtable hearings were already told to the NFL during the investigation. So nothing they said will really prompt the NFL to do much because they already knew about what they had said. But they've continued to shine a light on poor workplace behavior. When Congress investigated steroids, I was told by members that it did so because steroid abuse was rampant in society at lower levels, not just in Major League Baseball, but in the minor leagues, in high schools, in multiple sports. They viewed it as a health safety issue. That's why they wanted to tackle it. Right now, this situation is about one team. But I think we're kidding ourselves if we think this is the only place where this sort of culture exists or existed. I know people want Snyder forced out. I don't know if this helps that desire or not. I do wonder how much of it stems from the fact that while he might be more disliked than other owners, I'm quite sure there would be, as far as owners go, I'm quite sure there would be other owners worrying about things getting turned on them for either their own behavior or how things are inside their building. I hear enough stories about other places to know this was not the only NFL organization like this. There are really bad owners. Some who are just cads who won Super Bowls. But from an on-field perspective, when an owner butts in, they can be like that. But from an on-field perspective, when an owner butts into key decisions in terms of talent that he has no business making, like on quarterbacks, then it leads to trouble, or at least not just a bad organization, but not a very good team. Still, I'll just say I'm surprised that what's happened here as far as allegations and stories has not yet taken place with another organization. It's not easy to come forward in these situations, so I understand that part. It's not easy at all. A big difference here, as was compared to other places, it was explained to me by a former longtime employee, is the way Snyder treated people while here. Didn't matter if it was male or female. Now, if a woman is being sexually harassed for a long period of time and she works for another team, that should come out regardless of others like the owner or not. But here, the person told me things come out because of how others say they were treated while working here. Are they all lying? You want to know why there were always leaks here in the past? Because people weren't happy, whether while here or after they left. When I talk to former employees, it's like they've left a dysfunctional relationship and they didn't realize how bad it was until they got out and marvel at what they put up with. As the person said, there was one person who was a problem. And he said, just to be clear, Snyder was involved in every decision. So that's where we are at that point. The sad part here is that there are many in the organization trying to advance this place, but Snyder's presence continues to trip up any effort. The roundtable hearing will probably lead to a congressional hearing and more publicity surrounding this. Maybe it gets to a courtroom. I don't know. But it seems like every time others try to take a step forward, the past brings them back. I know President Jason Wright has told me a few times he hopes everything comes out so they can move past this. I don't know what else he can do aside from cooperating with whatever he knows and not trying, and doing, but again, calling for everything to be full transparent, that's probably his role. This isn't over. So while the team moved on from its past in one way, led by people who weren't here a couple years ago, in many other ways, that past remains an anchor. Before I play my conversation with Chris, I did want to return to the name for 1 minute, or at least aspects of it. I spoke with Rick Snyder about it on Wednesday, so you can get the full conversation on that podcast. I don't know how it'll feel in a few years with the Commanders. I think it's a lot better than the Wizards, so they didn't have the worst name change in town, in my opinion. Not that it's a great contest. I'm still not crazy about the white uniforms at all. The colors look different, more red. Make them burgundy numbers and stripes, and it's much better, much, much better. I'm guessing it's too late to do that, maybe down the road. I tweeted out a picture of one fan's version of the jersey alongside the actual one, the new one. The fan one I thought was better. It included the proper burgundy shade. It has been viewed, that tweet has been viewed by probably around 200,000 people. Why? Because whatever the name is or was going to be, the uniforms were key in helping the fans move forward. And I'm not sure they accomplished that goal with all of the ones they rolled out. Although I will say, when I talk to players or former players, they do like the uniforms, and I do think they like the white ones. So there you go. That's what I know. And with the years of the Super Bowl winners on the crest, those were approved by the NFL. However, and if you haven't heard, you know that it says instead of 82, 87, 91, those are the teams, the seasons they won. It's 83, 88, 92, the year of the actual Super Bowl. However, Washington can still change them, and I do think that's something Jason Wright will consider. He said as much on Kevin Sheehan's radio show, and I was told the same later in the day. Doesn't mean he will, but I think it's something they know they can correct. I hope they do, because it's one more thing that bugged fans. If you're not sure what year to put, then as Rick Snyder and I talked about on the podcast, use Roman numerals. Anyway, I'm done. You're waiting for Chris Cooley, so it's time to deliver. So here's my conversation with the former Washington tight end broadcaster, what he's doing now, what he thinks of the name, and also some quarterbacks he's familiar with, and ask his opinion on them, guys who might be realistic options here.
The moment we've been waiting for since September is finally here. In honor of the big game, DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of Super Bowl 56, is giving new customers 56-1 odds on either team. Bet just $5 to get $280 in free bets if your team wins. DraftKings Sportsbook is now live in New York, meaning you can bet from almost a third of the country. If Sportsbook isn't in your state yet, play DraftKings Daily Fantasy Football Contest for Super Bowl 56. New customers can get a free shot at a $1 million top prize with their first deposit. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app. Use promo code KEIM, K-E-I-M, and get 56-1 odds on either team. Bet just $5 and get $286 in free bets if your team wins. That's promo code KEIM at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of Super Bowl 56.
Welcome back. Now here's my conversation with Chris Cooley. Well, Chris, it's always good to catch up with you. We still talk a good about and all that, but I know people like to hear from you too. So give people, before we get into the football stuff, give people a sense of what you are doing now. What's your life like? Where are you?
Well, we are still in Wyoming. We moved almost 2 years ago out here, and I'm at wrestling practice right now with my 4-year-old. He started wrestling, but it's crazy because it's 4, 5, and 6, and there's 25 kids in the wrestling program there.
Really?
They all wrestle. Yeah, they're little kids. I mean, they're little. And my son's a big dude. I mean, he's bigger than most of the 5 and 6-year-olds, honestly, but he's still figuring it out. Right? It's hilarious. We're in this debate of do we do the tournament, or do we do matches, or we just do practice? And like, he doesn't really know the rules. They try to teach him moves. I mean, you try to learn a double leg takedown and a half Nelson, and it's like, there's no chance. I have a couple friends that have kids in the program. We take them out and then we're just like, go. It's like little kid fight club. Like, just go wrestle. So we actually asked him, I said, do you want to go and wrestle against the other kids on the other teams? He said, no, I need to practice more, Dad. So I think that's a pretty good idea, but we're doing that. And my daughter's 7 and we just got a horse. And so she rides a horse when it's not cold right now. And it's amazing. I just got my second child 4-wheeler.
Oh,
and so we have a ton of land so they can ride them in our backyard. And so they're doing 4-wheelers and horses and sports. And I've been hanging out and building. We're going to start building the house. We've been building stuff. So I'm getting better and better day by day, Kyle, at sheetrock and drywall and trim and framing.
The drywall is like, there are things I can do around the house, but the drywall always intimidates me. And just like putting the mud on there, like it doesn't, the videos make it look so easy. And then you go try and do it. Like, this does not look like how it should.
They do. But it is funny because I get that question, like, so what do you do? Or what are you doing? And I love doing nothing. It's not like I'm doing nothing, you know.
Well, you were building that look on that house for hours a day.
Well, I've been the general contractor on this project we just built, which is a shop house where my mom's living with a shop attached to it, or a giant garage. No one back east understands it's so common here to build a giant garage with a house attached. It's shop house, or if you live here, it's called a shouse. I explained it to my friends from home, and they're like, no, I don't know what that is. So anyway, I'm doing that, and we're going to start building a new home on our property in April. And so I'm going to GC that, and it's been awesome, man. We're coaching
some football.
I coached high school football this year. Absolutely. That was I really wanted to coach NFL football. And I gave, and you know this, and I think a lot of people that know me know this, but I don't know if anyone knows quite how hard I tried. Right. And I didn't even get an interview, man. And it was super frustrating. And I felt like that was the thing that I should do. I'd wanted to do that soon after I'd retired. And I didn't go in that direction. And so it's like, well, okay, I mean, when can we get into it? And I didn't think it was going to be something like, if I had the QC, then I'll go quality control. Well, that's not available. Like right. I couldn't get an interview for quality control. Like it's amazing. You got to go intern. You got to spend time. I don't know. I didn't know what to do. And so I was a little frustrated, after last year's hiring process. And coaching high school football made me well aware of the fact that I just want to be around ball.
Yeah.
Like it's fine. So, I thought there would have been an opportunity to coach in the NFL, and I could have kept pushing, I guess, but I don't know. I'm almost 40 and I have 2 young kids. That time has passed.
Well, and it's funny because in talking to a lot of guys who have played pro ball and who made good money, like the ability to coach high school ball is a great substitute because you've made your money. You don't, you could go do it because you could clearly do it, but you can kind of scratch that itch with high school, and the lifestyle is better if you have all the money banked.
Yeah, it was just, I think it would have been a great challenge to coach in the NFL. And I think that I could have done a lot of things as coach in the NFL. And it's funny you talk about, well, people that made good money. I started with that, like, hey, this isn't why I'm not doing this for money. That was probably the worst thing I could have said. Like, oh, so you could quit whenever you wanted to. Right. Okay, I probably should have told them I was broke and I needed a job.
I do remember you drawing up plays that other coaches might take.
Yeah, I don't know. Football's a fun game though. It's evolving every day, and I don't know. Watching what Kansas City did throughout the year and the playoffs, and I know they lost to Cincinnati, but and San Francisco, and what they've created with that run game, and Kyle's evolved it to every player. And it's such a great evolution of a sport, and it's a smart game, and it's smart on a high school level. It's as much time as you want to make it.
Well, I was going to say too, because the big thing for you, because you do have a very smart offensive mind, do you feel like it can be used there? And again, to feel like you can be challenged in that way?
I feel like high school kids can understand so much more than people or high school coaches in general think they're capable of. You have massive time restraints because there's school would end at 3:30 and practice starts at 4. There's no meeting per se. I mean, you get very little meeting time, but that you can manage that differently, where you could meet for an extra 20 minutes and shorten practice so it's an hour and 40 instead of 2. But then it's also that all your guys that you're teaching, they all our guys played both ways.
Right.
So you got half day of offense, half day of defense, and it's a little bit different. But I think that there's still so much strategy that you can implement, and there's a lot of fun ways to do it. And I spent a lot of time over the last 2 years creating a language that made sense on any level, which I think is phenomenal right now. I mean, I'd love to, at some point I'll have a chance to have it done that way, and I'd love to see how it works with young kids and the language that it's just, I just made it simple, man. I made it so everything's got to be 6 words, and like every play call can't be more than 6 or 7 words. And I found a way to, like, everyone calls double right or double left. It's hard to say right, left 2 or 3 times in a play. Right. So I found a way to eliminate that. And this would be a 6-hour conversation, so we won't have it. But I did spend a lot of time as a dork creating an offense.
Well, have you maintained contact with like Sean or Kyle? And I know for you and Sean were close for a little bit. Have you maintained contact with them?
Yeah, Sean and most of the guys in the coaching world you maintain contact with them in February and March and April.
Right.
Sean is unavailable.
Yeah, he's a little bit busy right now.
Like, we'll text back and forth every once in a while, but and I understand that. To some extent. I mean, I don't think it's that hard to text your friends back, but I say that and I don't text my friends back. So
do they pick your brain sometimes for stuff?
No. I mean, they just don't. We don't talk about that very often. I don't know. Yeah, like Sean has in the past. I have a few college coaches, and we spend time talking ball, and then there's a lot of people that I get to talk ball with. But
are you when one of the things I'm going to get into, like, Washington stuff, name and all that, but like, because we're talking about Sean, and then you get guys like, Kevin O'Connell, which sounds like he'll be the Vikings' next head coach. Any surprise there? What do you think of that?
I look at the Bengals are in the Super Bowl, and Zach Taylor's the head coach, and Matt LaFleur was that close to the Super Bowl, and Kyle Shanahan was that close, and they're all essentially the Shanahan or McVay tree. And so why would you think that what McVay's doing doesn't work?
Right.
Like, it's unfortunate in a lot of ways that a guy like Urban Meyer, who tries to do the hard-nosed, do it right or we're going to have problems, it can't last. But that's not the world we live in anymore. And I think he understands that. And, Urban's a guy I've talked to over the past and have kept in touch with. And I think he understands that's the way I coach. I can't do it that way. But Sean has evolved his coaching style and his manner and the way he does things for whatever reason, for what works with NFL football players right now. And I don't know how Kevin will turn out. I know he's incredibly smart and bright as a football coach, offense and defense. I know he understands things on a massively high level. And without that, I think it's tough. But it's also the relationships that you create with coaches and players that pushes your team to win and lose.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, I found Kevin to be smart, a personable guy, and I don't know what that'll mean for him as a head coach, but he is personable, and I always enjoy talking to him. So, I don't know, is he like Sean? I think Sean was just unique. Sean was unique as far as like, you knew when he was 27 that he's going to be a head coach soon. I don't, with Kevin, I think he's a little bit older, but he's not that much older. So did you see when he was here, how much did you get a chance to talk to him and, just about offense or whatever in general?
I talked to Kevin a little bit, not as much as guys like Sean or Jay. I wasn't as close. I was around that staff enough, especially in the last couple of years before they were all gone, to understand that Kevin does know how to find a way to get some control and have some authority more than I would have expected he would have had with guys like Jay and Bill Callahan. Because without being in the meetings and around them, Kevin doesn't seem like he's strongly outspoken, right. But I think he is. I think from seeing some of that on the inside, I think he is a little bit stronger and more outspoken than I would have perceived. So, yeah, I don't know. We'll see on him. I think he's got a great opportunity, and he understands the game, and he understands players, and he's got a good shot.
Good for Kirk.
They worked together for a year.
Right,
I don't
right.
particularly remember how that evolved, and that was in Kirk's. That was a bad year for Kirk to have a relationship with anybody on the team, and whether or not, he created a lot of that as well, but I don't know how they worked that year. I personally, knowing Kevin and Kirk, think they'd be tremendous together. Okay. I think it'd be great.
Are you surprised that would you think Mike McDaniel, Raheem Morris, those guys, what do you think of them as, Mike's name came up more this offseason? What do you think about those two as possible head coaches?
So I think that Raheem Morris is a head coach right now, no questions. I think he got a bad break as a head coach in Tampa, taking over a team in the middle of a year that it wasn't the best opportunity. It wasn't a long enough run for him. Since that time, I think he's been fortunate to be around amazing coaches and staffs over the last 8 years. I think he's a brilliant coach. I think he's the most personable, get along with.
I like him.
I think, and the player I played when he was coaching, and Ra is loved by everybody in the building, and he's given respect as well. It's not just a buddy thing. Like, he has a lot of respect. I mean, Ra was a guy that I remember when Sean was the OC, they spent more time together picking each other's brains on how they were going to do things. What works, what's tough for you? How do you defend this? How are you going to look at this? Like, he's a well thought out, smart, good coach. Raheem Morris is a head coach right now. If I was, he would probably be my first candidate.
He's a guy that, and I'll be honest, Chris, like, he's a guy, when a lot of the minority names get mentioned, I'm like, to me, he's the guy that I wish would get another shot. That of the ones that I know, I would love to see him get another shot. I mean, I'd like to see anybody get a shot, but I wish his name would come up more often. I guess that's what I'm trying to say, because I've always, I felt like, he was very young when he had the job. I know, I assume he learned a lot, but I also found him to be very personable. Like you said, players really liked him. And not just because he was a fun guy, because I felt like they felt like he got something out of them, and that he dealt with them well. And I like that he also went to the offensive side of the ball for a year or two.
Yeah.
And I think that was in Baltimore. So
Atlanta, coach receiver.
I'm sorry, that was Atlanta. Sorry, yeah, I don't want to say Baltimore. But so I like that. And so I like that he improved himself with that. I wish he would get another shot.
Yeah. And honestly, I don't even think, without even thinking or mentioning the minority thing, he's the best possible head coach this year.
Yeah. And I don't mean to say, but like,
no, and I understand what you're saying, because that's where the NFL is, and the Flores thing all came up. But I just think Raheem Morris is the best possible candidate right now. I think he's phenomenal.
I agree with you. You're right. And I don't want to classify it just as that, but because there was so much been attention on minority coaches who deserve another shot, and I don't feel his name gets mentioned a lot, regardless of anything, but his name should be mentioned more, because I think he'd do a good job. What about Mike? He'd
be the guy. If you had this, I'll guarantee you this. If you had to say, Sean, who would you want to keep? If it was him or Kevin, Sean would keep Raheem. I'm sure that would be a big loss for Sean. And then McDaniels. So I was around McDaniels when he was young as a QC in Washington, and got a chance to hang out with him a little bit. And I think the first couple of years he was a little wild, still young, having fun, but literally the smartest You talk about Sean being smart, and Sean has this insane memory. Mike McDaniels is the smartest guy I've been around. He's
He comes
brilliant.
across like that.
He is absolutely brilliant, and he'll be a good coach. I've got a chance to talk to him over the past few years, and I think he's really become a great football coach, and
What
he
makes
knows his stuff. Those are two really good coaches.
What makes a good head coach for you? Because like some guys could be, like you could bring up Mike, like brilliant offensive mind, brilliant, but is it what translates to being a good, having that, and then being a good head coach besides a quarterback?
I think there's so much to it. Obviously, the quarterback's the key part, and you see that with teams that are going to win, and teams that win in the future, and teams that don't, and coaches that last. A pairing of quarterback and coach is paramount. But above and beyond that, like they have to understand what their culture is and who they are as a person really well to understand how to build that around them, because it's really an extension of the head coach what your culture is. Who is he, and do you know yourself? It can't be some fake thing just to say we have a culture or we don't have a culture. It's how do I want to run things, and they have to understand that, and then you have to figure out, how do we get dudes? Like how do we get guys, and where do I go, and what's the process? Because if you don't have dudes, you can't win games.
Let's go to the name Commanders. What do you think?
I hate it.
It's, a lot of people listening to you probably agree with you.
I don't like it. It's really interesting. I did the podcast with Sheehan 3 days ago, or the day before the name came out. Okay. And I said, I think I'll feel indifferent to it. I don't care one way or another. It's not my team anymore. I saw the logo. It just looks so weird.
Yeah.
It's so different. It's so, I don't like it. I'm sorry. It's not my thing.
I think I'll be curious to see if people warm to it, because I think this is going to have to be a over time thing, because the initial reaction hasn't been great. And I think winning would help. I think a lot of people think that, but do they ever, like all these alumni here, have they ever invited you back yet?
Yeah. They've invited me back. So
there you go.
I'm not averse to coming back. It's just, it's been 2 years. It's not like I've been gone forever. And
right.
I don't need to go see a game.
Do you think, can this team can they win with Dan Snyder as the owner? Yeah, they can. If they got the right coach and GM in place and they can run their program, yeah. They can't. He's proven they can't win with him making decisions in any way, shape, or form on players. Right.
Like he's proven that he cannot get the right player, the quarterback, the guy. It's been long enough to see that unfold. That's not his thing. Like, that's going to be wrong. I think that he's been wrong in everyone other than Joe, essentially, and or he's not given enough time to guys that could have, like Marty. And I mean, I wasn't there for that, but
right.
It's hard to watch that team not win for that long and look at the stadium and see it less than half full. And I feel sad for the fans. I do, because the connection and the commitment, even when I got there, was so amazing. It was so incredible to be a part of that.
Yeah.
And I know it's not there anymore. And it's funny, you know, not being attached to it the way I was even working for it. I just don't. It's not that I don't care, but I don't feel that. I don't know. I don't feel that connection. That said, though, I've heard this whole talk, like everyone talking about, this name change. It's that's it. That's the last straw. It's not my team. Dude, seriously, like, go find another team. Is that even? Can you ever reconnect to something that you loved as a kid? Or like, you can't just pick another team.
Right. You can't.
Like, whether or not I'm truly on the edge of my seat for a Washington season, it doesn't mean I'm gonna go cheer for the Bengals.
Right.
Like that was my team for 17 years. Like I had a connection to that. Like I'm not moving on to a new team or a new thing. It just, as of right now, it's hard to fit. It's hard to commit to.
It is. And I think like there's that deep emotional attachment that people had. And I'd go back and watch like, the 91 team was celebrated, or they had the anniversary a couple weeks ago, and you'd watch some of the videos from back then. You watch some of the videos from the 80s, and it's like just what it was like then. And just, you see the name, the helmets and all that. And just like the drastic changes for fans, even with that. And then with the fact that they haven't won for so long, it's just like, I do feel for this fan base. And believe me, I mean, I can feel the frustration and the anger quite a bit, not directed at me, but just directed in general, because it's just been brutal.
Well, and they should appreciate the anger. And I don't think they do, but the anger is better than the apathy. And
right.
That's, they should appreciate and embrace the anger, because those are still your fans.
Well, I remember even having a conversation with Bruce Allen a couple of years ago, because he got several years ago now, but mad at a column that I wrote just about explaining why there's been an attrition of the fan base. And this was like, I can't remember what it was, like 4 years ago, maybe it was 2018, but he didn't see it and he didn't get it. And I kept telling him, Bruce, you've got to listen to me. Like I'm seeing it all the time. I hear from people all the time. And the numbers were going down for the ratings and all that. And he just never got it. And I just don't think they saw that. And so I think there were steps even back then that they couldn't quite take to get there. But I also think at that point, it was still like it's fallen off the cliff the last couple of years as far as people in games. But at that point, it was you could start to see it at that time. Unfortunately.
No, I would agree with you. And I'm still close with Bruce, and I was friends with Bruce for a long time. And I think that was a mistake to not address why there was attrition.
Yeah.
And to not address some of the faults of what had happened. Yeah, we understand what you're talking about, and we appreciate that you're mad, and we're working on fixing it. And
yeah,
it was always like this doesn't exist. You guys are crazy. We're great. Like, well, clearly you're not great, and it wasn't great when I was, for a lot of the time I was playing there, and I didn't understand it as a player, and it took 3 or 4 years being around everyone after that to start to kind of understand, wow, this is different. And being on the radio and being in the media, you get a different side of it, and you hear it in another way. And after 6 years there, it was like, this is just not good. It's not good right now.
No, it's not. And that's why I say, like, and what these fans want is a team that wins, but also what they need is a quarterback. And I don't know how much are you still watching games and staying up on players and teams?
So I didn't watch as much this year. I've watched all the playoff games. I watched some football, but it's so wild here because people do things on the weekend and they're out of town or they're in the mountains or they're hunting or fishing, and Sunday comes up and you're busy.
Right.
It's so weird to be like, I got halfway through the season. I'm like, shoot, I haven't watched like 3 football games. I watched a lot of the Eli Manning, Peyton Manning Monday night games. Well, that was fun. But I mean, enough. I'm there enough. I watch enough to have a grasp of what's going on, but not like before.
Well, so if you watch like one of the quarterbacks, I always say one of the quarterbacks on their list, but we know he's going to be available is Jimmy Garoppolo, and he's going to be on a few teams' lists. And I don't know, we'll see what happens with him. But what do you think of him?
I think Jimmy's inaccurate. I think he lacks anticipation. I think he's got a phenomenal release. He's super quick with it. He can throw a great ball. He obviously see where he has misses. So I think there's an inaccuracy there. I think when you're looking through that potential quarterback list, and are they going to get Aaron Rodgers or Russell Wilson, or what happens with Deshaun Watson? Those are I would try to bet that process with all of those guys before Garoppolo.
Oh, yeah. They definitely.
That being said,
I think each of them are big long shots.
Big long shots, and you're still going to have to give up. You're going to have to give up something for Garoppolo. I'm not exactly sure. It's hard in that trade process, but it's at least a second.
Probably a second, maybe a second other pick. Yeah.
I'm taking the best possible quarterback I can right now, And the contingency plan, if it happened to be Garoppolo, is you do have to draft somebody.
Yep.
You got to go and draft somebody, and it might be a second or third, or it might be a first if there's a guy you like in the first. But with Jimmy, you got to get a guy. Like if it were Aaron Rodgers, or even with Aaron Rodgers, at some point in the near future, you got to draft a guy, because how long is he going to play?
That would be my concern with him, is that if he's a 2-year guy, that's a lot to give up for maybe 2 years. And I don't know how long he'll play, but with him, it's like, I don't know. And Russell's 33. He wants to play into his 40s as well. So who knows?
Yeah, Russell's a little younger. You'd have to pay Aaron Rodgers at the end of, you'd basically redo a deal.
Correct.
So, I think you'd get him for 4, but do you know if you're getting him for more than 4?
My analogy with like a guy, like if they went Garoppolo, and I don't like, Derek Carr was also another one. I don't know.
Yeah, he's not leaving. They're not leaving Derek Carr.
Yeah, I don't see, like, I know that like it was John Gruden who really wanted him to stay there. I don't think it was the owner. But if you're Josh McDaniels, you're going to go there. Do you really want to get rid of Derek Carr?
Well, he already said he loved Carr.
Well, then
I think Carr's a great quarterback. I think Carr's a very good quarterback.
Yeah, me too.
I'm not suggesting that he's a top 5 quarterback, but I think you can win with Derek Carr.
Yeah, and that which is why I think he'll stay there. And so that's why I always look at the Jimmy G's of the world, because there's that mid-tier range. And I wonder if it would be equivalent to when Kansas City got an Alex Smith, where you get a guy that can take you to a certain level while still looking for the guy that can take you beyond that.
Yeah, and I totally agree. I think it's interesting, the predicament that you're in with getting a quarterback. And let's say you get a Jimmy G and that's a well-called offense and a well-coached team with a good staff and a lot of very good players. But Washington has good players. Are you a 9, 10, 11 win team where now you're never going to draft a dude in the top 10? But I think if you're Rivera, you have to. I don't know if he's got the longevity to have another losing season with Washington and not have found that quarterback and not have put that in place. And we're meddling around here with winning 9 games.
Correct. I think I know last year, I think in their ideal situation, like this year with what they had at quarterback, they felt like, could you get to 9 or 10 wins and then buy yourself some time while still looking for that quarterback, whether it's this offseason or next, because, hey, you got 9 or 10 wins, keep building, then go get the guy. The problem is you won 7 and the fan base is really understandably frustrated and impatient. And so I think you have to do something this offseason. But the problem is you're going to do something for quarterbacks. Like, what can you give up for these guys? So I'm with you. Like, if they got a Trubisky, a Jimmy G, or that level of quarterback, you still, to me, have to draft a guy and continue to be aggressive, looking to either find that guy, develop that guy, whatever.
Yeah, I entirely agree. Yeah, I just think it's hard to develop a guy now where they're not practicing once you get into the season and they're not playing. And I do. I think that's a little bit tough, and I think it's uncommon. But you sign Jimmy G, and you got to draft a guy and see if he can play.
Yeah, no, I'm with you.
And even if you traded for Jimmy G, the drafting's such a 50-50 or less than that proposition. But if you got a guy that you think he can play, then you play him.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And until that happens, until they find that guy, like, Taylor Heineke, been a nice story, but I know they want better. And but it's hard because, like, look at all these teams that are looking for quarterbacks. And then there are guys like, what does Cleveland do with Baker Mayfield? You always hear that Minnesota is, they're always on the edge with Kirk Cousins, but yet he's still there. And so, you know what I mean? So it's just, teams are reluctant to give those guys
better
up.
Than that. Like, Cleveland's not going to move on from Baker Mayfield this year. They might draft a guy, but they're going to play Baker Mayfield this year. It's hard to find better than that. And I understand Baker's limit. I'm not suggesting he's some phenom, but you don't just go get a guy. There's not a store for quarterbacks.
No, that's why Kirk gets paid what he did. It's why Dak Prescott made what he did. I mean, and Dak's a pretty good quarterback, but like that's a ton of money to one spot. And it's, but if you don't have that guy, then you don't want to be looking either. You don't want to be looking for that guy. And if you have a guy, you're going to try and keep him. So we'll see. So, well, listen, Chris, I've kept you a long time and I always enjoy catching up with you. So I really appreciate you coming on and I know people like hearing from you. So I appreciate it.
Come on whenever you want, buddy. It's always good to talk to you.
Well, good. Well, next time, I'll get some tips for how to do drywall properly, because I really could use that. I have some work in the basement that I need to get done. And I told my wife, like, I would do it myself, but I'm afraid if I mess it up, it's going to be staring at me for years. And it's going to piss me off every time and just taunt me if I don't do it right. So I'm going to.
If you mess it up, you just sand more. It's just more dust.
I know, but there's always like those little pock marks in there that I just like, where the hell does that come from? And that's what gets me. It's those little indentations. I'm like,
I know. I hate it. Yeah. I hate it so much.
Yeah. So, I look forward to see you. You need to get on like HGTV or something.
No, I don't want to be on TV.
Okay.
I don't want to make news and I want to be on TV. I just want to hang out in my little hideout in Wyoming.
There you go. Listen, it's a pretty damn cool place to be. So anyway, go have fun.
Appreciate it, buddy. Have a good one.
That's it for this episode. I appreciate Chris joining me. And thanks to you, as always, for tuning in. Again, head over to Empire Media YouTube and subscribe to us there. I'll talk to you next time.